Well, it's about a minute after 10. Since we are recording, like I said earlier, let me get things rolling. Thanks for everyone for joining us today. My name is Jasper. I'm with Score Maine, and we're happy to have everyone here presenting on how to join a Maine farmers market. We're joined by Jimmy DiBiase. I hope I didn't butcher that too bad. Who is the director at the Maine Federation of Farmers Markets. Corinne Tompkins of Fork Food Lab, and Eileen Flanagan and Dina, also participants in farmers markets as well as experts on the topic. If you're not familiar with SCORE, we're a free business mentoring service that is here for any business and the life of your business, opening, selling, operating. And if you don't have a SCORE mentor, head to our website, score.org, and apply for one. And we also want to thank the Maine Federation of Farmers Markets and Ford Food Lab for putting this presentation on today. And I want you guys to take it away. We are recording, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to queue them up in the chat or use the raise hand function.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jasper. Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. I'm Jimmy DiBiase with the Maine Federation of Farmers Markets. And before we move forward, I thought I'd just let the team today practice moving their tongues and using their vocal boxes and just saying hi quickly, introducing themselves and their role and how they connect with farmers markets here in Maine. So go ahead first, Corinne.
Hi there, everybody. My name's Corinne Tompkins. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for Fork Food Lab down in South Portland. We are Maine's only food business incubator and Maine's largest shared manufacturing and processing facility. So we can act as a really solid component for businesses that are interested in manufacturing a food item and bringing it to a farmer's market as a sales outlet, or we're available for your general food manufacturing needs. Good to be here today.
Thanks, Corinne. Great to have you. All right, Dina, want to say hi?
Hi, I'm Dina Albert Parks. I live up outside of Woodland, near Caribou, and I oversee the Prescott Farmers Market. I also have a farm, Chops Ahoy Farm, that does meat and bakery items. And I'm happy to be here today.
We're happy to have you all the way from Presque Isle. We're pinning up the map today. And then Eileen, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Eileen Flanagan, and I am in mid-Maine. I live in Vassalboro, and my husband and I have a primarily vegetable farm and fiber farm called Junction Garden, and I am the summer market manager at the downtown Waterville Farmers Market, and I also sit on the board of the Maine Federation of Farmers Markets.
Thanks, Eileen. Dina also sits on the board of the Maine Federation of Farmers Markets. Just a quick overview of who we are. Our mission is to cultivate a vibrant and sustainable farmers market community as a vital part of Maine's local food network. We're a nonprofit. We are not part of the state. We are our own independent nonprofit. We don't run any farmers markets in Maine, but we are the organization behind the scenes, helping them thrive and succeed, helping markets get off the ground, supporting vendors and market organizers through various challenges and assistant needs they might have. Our primary work that we do revolves around low-income food access. So we run the Maine Harvest Bucks program, which is a bonus bucks program for people who use SNAP EBT. So with that program, there's 45 farmers markets across the state of Maine that are able to accept SNAP, which 12% of Maine households receive. So it's these like federal food dollars that help low-income households make ends meet. And it's great that farmers markets and food producers across the state are able to get some of those dollars rather than it all going to the big box stores. And yeah, it just boost helps boost markets and helps boost bottom lines for farmers and food producers across the state. So there's a lot of other programs we run, but that's just a quick highlight of who we are. So just a brief overview of our agenda today. We not only want to educate you on how to join a farmer's market, but we want to demystify and give you some information on what farmers markets are in Maine and how they operate, because I think that's a big part or a big information gap that folks don't know about when they're looking to apply and join farmers markets in Maine. So this is just an overview. I'm going to present a number of slides and then ask our team here to kind of weigh in with some prompts from me, kind of like a panelist would. And then Corinne has a few slides to share as well. And then we'll be moving into Q&A and sharing some of the resources that exist for helping you on your journey to join a farmer's market in Maine. So just kicking it off with why join a farmer's market in Maine? I will say, looking at that top bullet point, perfect for starting, growing, or sustaining a business, like livelihoods are supported by farmers markets in Maine. They are not a place just for hobby farmers. There are business models that are thriving, bakers, farmers, other food producers by selling at farmers markets in Maine. So I just want to make that crystal clear that farmers markets are essential to small business development in Maine, essential to like rural community development, and you could grow a business at farmers markets in Maine, which is awesome. The low barrier to entry is a huge selling point. I'm sure Corinne will expand on that too with a lot of the vendors that she works with at Fork Food Lab. But yeah, so farmers markets can be your full business model. They can be a piece of the puzzle or just an origin story where plenty of farms and food businesses get off the ground by starting to sell at a farmer's market. They can also just be a marketing strategy for building your brand. If you have an online store, it's a great way to get just people aware of it and aware of your products. Also, trialing your products, you're not going to get a better place to do that than face-to-face with a customer with your product between you two. So sampling. And yeah, I have a quick anecdote of, I've sold chocolate at farmers markets before, and it was great to get customer feedback because a lot of people didn't like it. And also the reasons that they did like it, like I put so much effort into roasting the beans and grinding them, and people were like, didn't care about that, despite that being like 80% of my work and the cost of making the product. They were more excited that it was like sweetened with honey. So it was just like really good consumer feedback that led me to not keep running that company. I'm curious for Dina, why did you join the farmers market up in Presque Isle or wherever you started?
Actually, I found farmers market in Caribou, which is no longer a market. I'm gonna say, oh God, it was a long time ago, probably 15 years ago, maybe. We raised mostly pork at the time, and I just needed another avenue to be able to sell frozen meat by the package. But my big is I like feeding our community, and I like knowing that we're feeding our family. I have 3 kids who eat a lot. And we can grow a little bit extra past what our needs are, and we can share it with our friends and family and community. So we started there, and that went pretty well, and then the market kind of got funked a little bit. So I joined the Presque Isle market, which is a little bit farther away for us. And then a couple of us tried to start a market in Fort Fairfield, and that one didn't work out so well. And then, so I had stayed with the Presque Isle one anyway. It's only on Saturday mornings. So it was kind of easy. The other ones were kind of during the week, which wasn't as easy for us to get to anyway. And that was primarily why I started. And then as we started getting into growing more vegetables and herbs, I needed an avenue, another avenue to sell herbs, because I wanted to do dried herbs and make dip mixes. So you can dry the herbs in the state of Maine, but then to put them in a package, you had to have a home food processor license or commercial kitchen. So I have upgraded to that so that I can sell my dip mixes, and then that kind of led into doing breads and some other things. So still do a lot of vegetables. We're doing beef too, along with pork, and that kind of turned into, we had a lot of older vendors in the Prescott market. And the city was asking us to help move and revitalize downtown. And so I kind of took over the market and we moved locations. And so it's kind of been a spiral since then. And Jimmy's been great about helping with all that as well. So
Great. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Dina. Eileen, a different question for you. What's the value for you and your business at selling at the Waterville Farmers Market?
Well, primarily I sell vegetables and fiber there and plants. So that's the big value there is I have a direct access to customers. And I think that idea of getting to know your customers that you touched on, Jimmy, and, kind of almost product market testing also has been super helpful for us. And especially as we move more into fiber and natural dye, it's really wonderful to get feedback from customers about, like, as your story illustrated, sometimes what you think as the producer, like this is what's really going to capture people's, excitement when you find out like, oh no, they're much more interested in naturally colored yarn versus dyed yarn or, kind of whatever that nuance might be. So it's been really a great experience for us. I would also say to the point that this past summer, we joined 2 other farmers markets as well. And that was been really helpful to even kind of see the differences of markets and what kind of customer bases go to different markets. So that's been helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, we should hear more about that later. A slide we don't have here is why not to join a farmer's market, and maybe we'll talk about that at the end, but that is definitely, farmers markets are not silver bullet for all situations and all business models. But we'll move along because there's a few more slides to share. So I really want to convey 2 things about farmers markets in Maine. Number 1 is that there is a state law defining what a farmer's market is in Maine, and it's very explicit in that a farmer's market, in order for an entity to be called a farmer's market in Maine, it has to have 2 or more farmers setting up on location, selling 75% plus of their own product. And any products that are bought in would need to be labeled as such, including the Maine farm's name. So there's a lot of integrity and intention there in having, and maintaining the integrity of farmers markets where they're very much the producers. They're not people going to an auction and buying in food and then reselling it, like you might see at some public markets. It's very much farmer focused, farmer prioritized. And there's also intention in that law in allowing markets to kind of interpret beyond that, if they're going to allow crafters or even if there's going to be buy-in and whatnot. So, and we'll get to that in a moment. The other big defining feature of farmers markets in Maine is that a lot of them are organized by the farmers themselves. They are member run. So the vast majority, well over 90%, are run by the farmers/vendors who sell there. That means that they're meeting in the wintertime and doing some type of democratic decision-making process on the rules, on who's allowed in the coming year, any conflicts or just decisions that need to be made, just relations with the host site. Most markets in Maine don't have a paid staff person. Their manager are people like Eileen and Dina, who might be walking around the market to collect dues or enforce rules if they're in violation or deal with a customer complaint. So they are, and that is the vast majority, and there's a lot of strength around that in the sense that the markets have very committed vendors because it's kind of an extension of their business and their enterprise. I see with a lot of nonprofits that start up a market, they might have their own interest of I want people to come to this museum, so I'm going to put a farmer's market here. And that's great and can be a great community service, but a farmer or a vendor that sells there yeah, just like doesn't necessarily have the ownership they do when it's a vendor run market. So I'm not saying one's better than the other, and there's plenty of examples of thriving markets with both models, but what we see mostly in Maine are member run markets. There are a handful of nonprofit run markets. What come to mind are the Brunswick Saturday Summer Market that's run by the Brunswick Topsom Land Trust, or Yarmouth 317 Maine has a hosts a market in Yarmouth. And then a community run market, only one is coming to mind right now for me, and that's the Kittery Market, the Kittery Community Market. So they have a board of directors that make decisions on who's in and who's out, and just marketing budget and all of that, and even have paid staff. And that's a hybrid model in the sense that farmers and vendors are definitely on that board, but so are local community members that have connections and whatnot. Um, so, so yeah, that's a huge defining feature of farmers markets in Maine, that I think a lot of folks aren't fully aware of. And yeah, I want to. So, I'm curious if Eileen, you want to expand on how some of the markets you sell at are structured, and just like what unique facets there are there for that.
Yeah, well, Waterville particularly, I know them best because I've been there the longest and I'm the summer market manager, but we're a vendor run market and we're also a producer only market. So that means that, as you just described, in the wintertime, the vendors are making decisions, including on applications for new vendors. And it also means producer only, like everybody either is making or growing what they sell at market. And we're pretty strict on that. And I know in a little bit we're going to talk about like applying to farmers markets, but that's one of the things I think it's really important to know about that market you're applying to, is to whether or not it's producer only and how you're going to address that in your application.
So
Yep.
producer only for Waterville, because this is like the Portland farmers market. If you're selling bread, then you got to be growing that grain. But in Waterville, it's maybe not as strict. Is that right?
That's true. And I will say, sometimes when we have an applicant and it's something they're making, other vendors will ask where they're sourcing the ingredients for that, whether it's baked goods or something else. And if they're not growing it themselves, there's an interest to know, like, is that still sourced in Maine or is it coming from somewhere else? But we don't have strict rules about it. So as long as you're baking the bread, that would qualify for us.
Great. Dina, is Presque Isle pretty similar to that? You're muted.
Sorry, I was having technology issues. Yeah, pretty similar to what Waterville is doing. Definitely vendor run. And then, yeah, as long as we do allow a few crafters in our group as well. And, we have a couple that are more grandfathered because they've been there longer than I have. So, they buy in the beads and stuff, but they make the jewelry themselves. So, as long as they're making the product themselves, and then citing their sources as needed, whether it's baked products or, like dip mixes and all that kind of stuff and jewelry, then yeah, we're totally fine with that.
Great. Yeah. So, we've mentioned that with these member-run markets, they're deciding who's in and who's out. And I think farmers markets in Maine can get a bad rap as being protectionist, but really, there's many, many farms and small businesses selling at these markets that have dedicated decades to their markets and building that customer base. And it's an evolving conversation at each of those markets for when it is time to let in that third baker. But they're doing it out of interest for everybody, including the potential applicant, because if you were to flood a market with a certain product, that can really just impact sales for everybody and lead to problems with just keeping any bread vendor, never mind one or two.
Well, and competition is good. But
Mhm.
if you have 4 vendors selling the exact same thing, not including vegetables, but if everyone's selling bagels, that's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, right. Um, so, if you apply to get to a farmer's market, we definitely want you to know what you might be getting into. There's various member types, ranging from a full year member where there's attendance expectations, and like on a weekly basis, you are expected to be there for the entirety of the market season. Attend Markets have attendance rules where, if 3 strikes and you're out, or you might be replaced, or it could impact your possibility of getting back into the market the coming year. So that's just something to be mindful of. For a lot of these markets that are vendor run, first year members are considered provisional members, meaning like nothing's for certain as to whether or not you'll be in the following year. These are, cooperatively run enterprises, these farmers markets, so they really are protective of just like making sure that whatever new businesses are joining and the people and personalities behind it are jiving and working well together. And markets rely on, for social media, like because it's vendor run, and those vendors are often volunteers filling different roles. Like you might want to be a treasurer, or you could offer to help with some marketing. So there's ways to get involved and increase your value. And you'll see that on a lot of farmers market applications. They might have a question like, what are you willing to do to help grow the market beyond just showing up as a vendor? Um, Also calling out, there's seasonal membership types. I see a lot of markets do this for blueberry vendors that might only just be coming to sell the fresh blueberry product in July, August. And then a handful of markets also have day vendor, guest vendor rules, which could be a great way to dip your toe. I know that plenty of businesses out there pursue that model for just getting in and exploring the farmers market community of Maine. And I'm curious, Corinne, with all of the folks that um, operate at Fork Food Lab and are trying to plug into markets, like what do you see them doing often, kind of in relation to these vendor types?
Yeah, definitely. So we see a little bit of everything through our member community. We can be a hub as a licensed commercial kitchen space for existing year-round farmers who want to create a value-added product. Let's say you're growing a bunch of basil and you want to make a pesto and you don't already have a cottage kitchen license, but you want to add a value add. So we see that through your year-round types of vendors, sometimes like that. We see the provisional members, we see the seasonal members, we see the day vendor and the guest vendor with all different types of products, a lot of different people using it for marketing strategies, proving a concept, sampling items, but our facility can be a space to allow all different types of vendors to enter into the farmers market community.
Great. Curious, is there a attendance policy, Eileen, for Waterville?
Um, I didn't go back and look at our rules and bylaws, but I think we have one around, like you have to show up maybe 3 times in a season.
Oh.
Otherwise you're kind of, not welcome back the next year. But I will say when you're provisional, that's absolutely something that everybody is kind of keeping their eye on. So if you're a provisional member, it's your first year there and you're rarely coming, chances are you're not going to become a full-time member.
Great. Yeah, these considerations for vendors, I think a lot of markets in Maine, with being producer only, are really, perhaps you're making empanadas or some other products and you don't want to farm and grow the ingredients for that, which makes total sense and is highly impractical. Like sourcing local ingredients, I think, is a major leg up in just kind of being a competitive applicant vendor and getting into a market. So, how to join a market? It's not rocket science, but one thing to understand is like each of these markets across the state are independent individual farmers markets. So you have to apply to each of them independently, individually. There's some resources I will share at the end that might help you on this journey or just help you understand which markets are looking for a vendor like you. Um, but yeah, ultimately you're applying likely around now. A lot of markets will post application information on their website. Ideally, they might even post what types of vendors they're looking for, which can be helpful. I definitely think it's worth asking. I know in the past, you have to remember markets are volunteer run. These are very busy people, especially farmers, and when they're selling year round. Like just doing your own advocacy and just making sure like I'm applying as a baked goods vendor. Are you even looking for one this year? That could just save you a little trouble and frustration in just narrowing in on which markets are really going to even be a viable option for applying to. Um, Hopefully you've got a business plan that you've thought of, that's indicated you've thought about what markets you want to, or just how you want to grow your business and where markets fit into that piece of the puzzle. It's definitely a time commitment to sell at a farmer's market. If you're selling at a Saturday morning farmer's market, you're probably going to be working late on Friday or early on Saturday, just prepping and packing, getting your products ready. And then if it's a market that even runs from like 9 to noon, depending on the commute time, it could be a 5 to 8 hour day. And the setup and all of that. So definitely encourage you all to visit farmers markets just to get a feeling for what they're like, and potentially to have a little FaceTime with the organizers and people that would be reviewing your application. And yeah, there's more to expand upon that. I don't know, Dina, if you've got any insights, for people that might want to apply to the Presque Isle Farmers Market, what would be your advice for them?
Well, we're always definitely looking for veggie vendors. Can really never have enough veggie vendors. Because ideally to be able to do some of these programs and participate in some of these programs that the Maine Federation of Farmers Market, happens to offer, and they're all really based on fruits and vegetables. So you can't go wrong with fruits and vegetables. Other than that, we're really just looking more for things that are outside the box. Gluten-free items, seafood, because we don't live near a lot of, we have fresh water, but mushrooms, things that are unusual, that are not so common to grow. Definitely looking for that kind of stuff. I tend to find the biggest time people reach out to me is that they've been to a farmer's market day and they've come and they're like, hey, we didn't see that, there was a vendor for this. What do you think about that? So usually every Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, I get 3 or 4 Facebook messages or emails about possibly becoming a vendor. So then I have to vet them out and, or hold their hand, walk them through something, whether it's the application process or, they need their licensing or whatever it needs to be. So we kind of go from there after that. But yeah, the big thing is just trying to find that niche that not necessarily everybody else has going. So except for the fruits and vegetables pipe.
Great. Eileen, so you joined Waterville Farmers Market how long ago? But like, what was that experience like for you? Why do you think you got in?
Yeah. Well, we applied in the winter of 2020, which was interesting because, of course, the pandemic hit and it was kind of a crazy season. But the experience of applying, my husband and I are kind of new farmers, and we had sold at one tiny little farmer's market before, but the experience of filling out the application and then going and meeting all the other vendors, and they kind of ask you questions and things like that. It was a little bit nerve-wracking, but obviously it went okay for us, which was good, but 2020 was a very unusual year for, I mean, it turned out to be a decent year for selling plants and selling vegetables because of everything going on with the pandemic. But a lot of the other vendors that had been long-time vendors in Waterville didn't end up coming back that year or came back late. And we had a pretty good, I would say, turnover the following year. Like, in other words, it was a year where several longtime big vendors just decided they weren't going to either continue to do that farmers market specifically or any farmers market. So that was kind of an interesting year, but I do remember thinking it was a little bit nerve-wracking applying. And I will say, I did not go and visit that market, which I think was not a good idea. But when we joined two more of our markets this past season, I absolutely, kind of having a little more experience in selling in farmers markets, I went and visited farmers markets that were within, 30 to 40 minutes of where we live. That's what we decided kind of our reach was going to be. And day of week was important for us to think about. And it was, I think, really important that we went and talked to other vendors at that market while we were there and talked to the person who was managing it. So that person knew we were interested in applying. And yeah, overall, that I highly recommend that, just both from, so as the potential vendor what it's going to be like, but also they know you. So when your application shows up, they know it. And I see that in Waterville a lot of times, during market, somebody will come up and, say, hey, are you Eileen? I hear you're the summer manager and I'm interested in applying. And, they'll tell me about themselves and I'll tell them about the process. It's really helpful.
That's great. Yeah, we're going to keep moving. And I'm going to pass the torch to Corinne for a few slides as our resident expert in kitchens and licensing and food safety. And also, the next slide, Corinne is just talking about how to succeed at a farmer's market. But we'll start with this. So go ahead.
Definitely. So what you need to join a farmer's market, it's great to have so many people on our panel today that already do this and know, but for those of you who are thinking about doing this or getting into it for the first time, or maybe last year was your first year and you're trying to see how you can expand and really draw people into your stand this year, what people often sometimes get confused about is the licensing associated with anything that you would want to be able to sell at a farmer's market. So at the beginning of this, Jimmy mentioned that if you have like a prepackaged item, you need a label. Through who's often most licensing businesses that want to sell at the farmer's market, the Department of Agriculture as a mobile vendor. When you're filling out that application, you can also really build a plan for yourself. So when you're filling out that license application, maybe you're not sure if you're actually going to sell something that's prepackaged down the road, but sometimes it's worth it to even check off those boxes at the beginning of the season just to really open up your opportunity for the potential season. And we're so fortunate to have our health inspectors through the Department of Agriculture be so pro farmers market, pro mobile vendor, and they're so willing to work with you throughout the year. So it's good to be transparent with your health inspector from the beginning. And something that we do down at Fork Food Lab is support individuals in really identifying what do I need to get licensed from the beginning, because these applications last for a year. Your license lasts for a year. So we do some coaching down here at Fork Food Lab to really sort out what your year might look like and what the best path is for licensing moving forward. When it comes to liability insurance, we often recommend getting your insurance through the Food Liability Insurance Program of Maine, also known as FLIP. We find that when you're trying to get liability insurance and you're going through someone who specializes in home or car, you're often going to get a really high monthly premium with inadequate coverage. So really zeroing in with an insurance resource that is a professional in food business can be really critical for ensuring that you're getting adequate coverage at a reasonable price. So we recommend Flip if you're looking for new insurance or this is your first year. You always want to have a really solid tent. And down here in coastal Maine, especially having tent weights can be really critical to ensuring that your tent doesn't blow away on a windy day and things like that. But you want your tent, typically 10 by 10, to be visibly stimulating for people to really be drawing their attention to your stand and how that really that visual presentation looks. You also are going to need some tables in there too. So when you're really thinking about this, if you're a customer looking at your own tent, what would you want to see? You might want to see a banner behind you or some really colorful and bright name recognition and branding on the front side of your table, some types of banners and tablecloths. You want it to look nice. You want people to really be drawn in to what you're offering them. Do you require coolers with ice, or are you serving hot food there? And if you are serving hot food there or a hot beverage, how are you going to make sure that you're maintaining food safety regulation? Cold stuff has to stay cold and hot stuff has to stay hot. I personally used to sell a frozen consumer packaged good through a farmer's market, and I would be bulking up on dry ice first thing in the morning to make sure that my frozen stuff stayed frozen for the 6 hours I was going to be at the market. So really thinking about those components to ensure food safety throughout the duration of your market. We mentioned the attractive display, the attractive signage. There's a bunch of different options that you can go through, some, varying in cost. And after this is all over, I'd be happy to make some recommendations for who to reach out to if you're interested in elevating what you're offering for that attractive visual display. You also need a way to collect money. Obviously, there's cash. Cash is king. Everybody knows that. But when it comes to having a variety of different people and not really knowing who's going to be coming to your market today, offering things through a point of sale system can be really helpful and beneficial for accepting your swipeable cards, credit cards, debit cards, and then also really sinking that into, for those who are eligible, with the SNAP benefits that can be applied to various farmers markets. So really zeroing in on how you're going to be collecting money from people is critical to ensuring that you're making sure you're making the money and being able to go back and providing consistency for the season. Marketing materials are always important. I think about farmers who, maybe you're a farmer and you're getting ready to offer next season's crop or things like that. Having a menu or something like that, something that your customer can hold to really think about not only what you're offering today, but what you might be offering down the road, can really start to educate your customer and bring them back consistently over and over again. In addition to having business cards or just having information about your website and where people can find you. Those marketing materials are critical to making sure that your customer knows where you are. Also a great way to get people to sign up for email lists to know when you're coming back, if you're having special events, if you have a special product line coming down the road. Those marketing materials are critical for making sure your customers, again, educated on what's going on. And then obviously you want to be able to collect the mess that everyone's making around you too. So having a small garbage can, maybe some people might even need a little bit of a compost can, depending on what they're doing at the market that day. But being able to have your own little sustainable store is really what we're getting at with this slide here. Is, these are really the core components of what you need for making sure that your customer is having an excellent experience at your stand and you're collaboratively working with the market to make sure that everybody's on the same page when it comes to sanitation, food safety, and cleanliness.
You want to kick this off, Corinne, and then we can ask Eileen and Dina to weigh in on their experiences?
Definitely. So on this next slide, how to succeed, our first bullet point says, have awesome and abundant products. Although, some people really like to see that you have plenty of options for them in a volume that's adequate. Because sometimes if you don't have enough stuff on your table, whether it's produce, fruits, vegetables, flowers, really anything, that it can look as though there's a scarcity issue that's happening there. And some people might be disincentivized from actually executing the purchase they were thinking about because they think that there's only one or two left and they don't want to take the last the last loaf of bread so somebody else doesn't have the opportunity to get it. So making sure that you have enough but not too much so that you're creating waste for yourself, but having a nice full abundant display it's really important for the psychology of shopping essentially. Be friendly and sales oriented and put your phone away. We've all experienced this at this point. If you're going to some type of retail outlet and you're interacting with somebody who's completely disinterested in your business there and shopping with them, that can really deter people from not only making a purchase on that day, but even coming back again down the road. So we always want to be smiling. We always want to be sales oriented, ready to answer questions, and be knowledgeable and educated about your own items and product line. So you can, again, always back to customer education. Develop relationships with your customers in these small communities that we're often intersecting with. It's so important to be able to shake the hand of the person who's coming to spend money with you, especially in the beginning of your journey. Whether you're a farmer or a value add food producer, a provisional or a seasonal business, really making that eye contact and connecting with your customer is so critical, and often why we encourage new businesses to utilize farmers market outlets for introducing new products, because you really get the chance to talk about that product, maybe give a small sample of your product, learn who your customer is. And what we all love so much about Maine is that, who knows, you probably know this person or you're 1 or 2 degrees away of separation from them. So it's a way to really cultivate community. Collecting emails, newsletters, and asking people to follow you on social media. That relationship with your customer that we just mentioned, this is the extension of that. This is how we really get people keeping eyes on you, staying engaged, and connecting with also a younger audience too. Having these digital formats can really start to diversify the age range in which people are coming back and paying attention to your farm stand. Promoting your attendance at the market is critical. We always say, don't make assumptions that people know where you are and what you're doing this week and what you have for items. Making sure that you're really putting that information out there, not only individually, but with your market too. Everybody can start to come together in cross promotion and cross marketing to really get more eyes looking at who you are, what you're doing, what you have this week, and what's coming up ahead. Sometimes offering samples is a really awesome way to get people to really hook, line, and sinker into that, actually spending those dollars on your items. Some farmers markets allow it, some farmers markets don't. And we have the little note here about COVID. It's in this post-COVID world that we live in, it's really important to make sure that people aren't putting their hands in, your sample plates, or, being able to isolate out that sanitation component so people feel comfortable and confident trying your samples. So having small sample cups, having tongs, or maybe you're the one controlling the samples anyway, and you have some disposable gloves that you can wear. Being mindful of the health and safety of your customer always brings more integrity to your business and allows people to feel really comfortable with you. Be helpful to other vendors and the market manager. We all know that farmers markets are so critical to so many different industries in this state, regardless of where you're at in your business life. And, it takes a village to really make sure that these markets are successful and keep bringing people back. So working collectively together, thinking more about collaboration rather than competition, really is ultimately a massive benefit for each market and therefore every individual utilizing that market. And then be ahead and outside of the season. So, oh, my apologies, I skipped over one. Be reliable and adhere to market rules. Making sure that you are respecting the integrity of all of the work that's gone into really organizing these markets and being really an outlet for you as an individual vendor is so important. There is so much work that goes into this. So showing up, being on time, coming prepared. Obviously, things happen. Part of that reliability is also having excellent communication skills and ensuring that everybody's on the same page if something changed for you or you're running into an issue. Also, in the name of transparency, sometimes if you're having an issue, maybe somebody else at the market can help support you and get through that issue that you're experiencing that day. So staying in communication is a really, really important part too. Adhering to the market rules and acknowledging all the work that everybody's put into this. And then be ahead outside of the season. You always want to be 2 or 3 steps ahead, checking the weather forecast. If you need to bring a raincoat that day, bring a raincoat. Maybe you need to think about what your tent situation is going to look like in a variety of different seasons. So really having that preparedness as a core component of your marketing and your farmer and your stand is so critical to ensuring success year round.
Awesome. Thanks, Corinne.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Dina, what, what are you seeing in Presque Isle? Like, what are some qualities of successful vendors there, or the most popular vendors? Like, what is it that you think contributes to their success?
Honestly, being friendly.
Yeah.
Bubbly, talk to everybody. If someone's walking by, hey, for you today, what can I talk you into buying? um, you know, People that socialize with their customers will have better sales because their customers will then, oh, hey, they're invested in me, I'll invest in them.
Yeah.
I have one baker that's sociable. She has a store too, and she usually sends someone that works for her, and she's just a grumpy hag. She really is. And if she does come, you can tell that I always get a complaint about her, about how she's not friendly to customers. And I mean, she can bake the heck out of things. She really can. She's just not good with the customers. So
Yeah.
when she, sends someone else, it's usually a better day. All our vendors are friendly with each other. It's like a little community within our community. And, we look forward to seeing our regular customers every week. And then we always wonder, hey, we didn't see Alice today. Anybody know, she's an older customer. Anyone, have any idea where she's been? When we look out for our customers and they look out for us, because then they'll pre-order for the following week. And that's just a fabulous thing. But honestly, being friendly to your customers is the best thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah, that reminds me, I mean, we don't have like firm data on this, but anecdotally, like, the business owner going to the market always has a better sales day than like sending a hired hand. And I think that
Mhm.
speaks to like just the customer's desire for connection and authenticity. And, a lot of farmers market customers have values around supporting local businesses, and I think they want that face-to-face contact with the entrepreneur behind the business. Eileen, does anything pop out to you thinking about Waterville and successful vendors there?
I absolutely agree with what Dina said. I think conversation with your customers, friendliness. I always engage folks like that are just outside my tent. Like,
Mhm.
even if it's like to say something like, oh my gosh, you got a really awesome shirt today, or I love the dog, or just starting that kind of conversation can draw people in. And with your regular customers, like I try to learn their names as quickly as I can. Maybe it takes me a week or two, but then, hey, Bob, how are you this week? And, remember what they usually buy. Or if there's something new that you're like, hey, you know what, you might really like this. And that kind of conversation, I think, is really important. And I will also say it takes a little time for a new vendor to make those kind of relationships with customers at the market. And sometimes new vendors don't have that patience, I guess, is what it, because they see regular customers engaging with a lot of vendors, but those regular customers maybe aren't coming into them right away or spending as much money. And again, with my experience of starting at 2 different markets, new for us this year, I recognized that in the beginning of the season, it was a little frustrating because I didn't have my regulars. But by the end of the season, there I did have a couple regulars. I was starting to know names. People were coming looking for specific things from us. And I'm hoping next year that that'll build on it again. But you need some, making those connections takes a little time.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, and
I
put your phone away.
I
I mean,
find that
go ahead. Go ahead.
I find pairing a new vendor with a really good seasoned vendor that's very promotive of everybody. If they kind of have a booth next to each other, I find, hey, have you met so and so? And this is what they're offering for products today. That kind of, it's a win-win for everybody. So
Yeah, I love that, Dina. We do a little bit of that too. And I also think as a vendor, knowing what your other vendors are selling, and especially if it's something
Mhm.
that's complementary to what you have, or like, let's say I have cucumbers today, but I don't have a bunch, but I know, Rachel at Seven Moon also has cucumbers. When I'm out of cucumbers, the first thing I'm saying is, hey, go check out Rachel across the parking lot there, because she usually has them, or eggs, or, really promoting each
Mhm.
other that way is helpful.
Yeah, we
Love
do
it.
that as well. Mhm.
That's great. I I want to show a few resources. So this is mainfarmersmarkets.org. This is MFFM's website. One of the things we do is promote farmers markets across the state. So there's resources here for market members. Keeping your stand legal has some great information about licensing that you might need if you're planning to sell prepared food products, especially. Um, so one way to find farmers markets is to go to our shopper tool and find a market near you. You can even search markets by day, but like the moment I type in Bangor here, here's the markets within 5 miles of Bangor, and you can click, there's the Brewer Farmers Market. You can click into that. There's some contact info and a website you can go to. So that could be a great starting place for finding a farmer's market. We even list markets by day. So if you're like thinking about what are the Sunday markets in my area, maybe this is the tool you use. Um, if you ever need help connecting with a market organizer because the market doesn't have a Facebook page or our information sometimes is out of date, just reach out to us. You'll see our contact info soon. Another thing I want to show is the Market Vendor Matchmaker tool. Now, this is a new service we just soft launched, but you can go to this page. So again, under Market Members or Market Managers, Market Vendor Matchmaker tool, there's a form for you to fill out as a vendor, and it's going to ask a handful of questions. And once you populate that form, you are going to be given a link to uh, to this list. And now this is the form that the markets have filled out. So you as a vendor will fill it out, and there will be a similar vendor list for markets to access. But now you get access to this list where markets have filled out their market name, what types of vendors they're looking for, contact information. How much does it cost? Even vendor type, year-round, summer season. So just various ways to parse out. And now this is a question that I'm really glad markets are sharing information about. I think like for vendor education purposes, it's critical because you're gonna have days, especially in May, April or May, even at a big farmer's market where your sales are not going to be what you'd expect. And especially for markets that require attendance, like there's reasons behind why they are there those days. They want to be present and show up for their customers, and they've committed to these seasons, but really just calling out like what you should be expecting sales wise at a market. And again, these are questions, right? Like on the busiest day of your market, what would you estimate the median vendor is getting in terms of sales? So just hopefully helpful, somewhat insightful tool there for you. Um, yeah, and we're kind of wrapping it up at this point. We do have some ideas of which markets across the state are looking for vendors. I haven't updated this fully, so some of it could be a little dated. Hopefully that market matchmaker tool will be a really helpful resource and kind of our new hub for how to find what markets are looking for vendors and what vendors are looking for markets. Corinne, we've got a slide here. I don't know if you want to just pitch a little bit more about Fork Food Lab for like 30 seconds on just, yeah, how people could join.
Yeah, definitely. So whether or not you're in southern Maine, what we really offer for a service as Maine's only food business incubator is really being a Grand Central station for all different types of information. This is a little bit about who we are, what we do, how many businesses we're currently supporting. We're a nonprofit organization. It's a membership-based program, but without even joining Fork Food Lab as a member, you are more than welcome to reach out to us if you have any initial questions about getting through licensing, insurance questions, etc. So please feel free to reach out if there's anything we can do.
Awesome. And yeah, lastly, here's how you can contact us. So that concludes our presentation, and I'll hand it back to Jasper, who I think is going to facilitate a little Q&A.
Yeah, we had one question already queued up from Stephanie Harris, actually wondering about hosting farmers markets and seeking vendors for her location. Any tips and tricks on that? Oh,
Let's see. I have a question about hosting farmers market and seeking. If Stephanie's still here, does Stephanie want to unmute and just give us a little more context?
yeah, Stephanie, go ahead.
Hi. I am in the process of opening That Damn Garden, which is going to be a garden and gift store in Danforth, Maine. My town offers once a week, they offer the Saturday 8 to 1 farmers markets. Looking to see if there's a way that my location can offer another day so that the vendors aren't just packing up for one day to come to town. And then other ways, is there things I need to know if I'm walking through a farmer's market and I say, ooh, I really love your product. Can I have it in my store? How do I, is this not the right kind of platform for that? Or is this okay question?
I think it's an okay question. So on the farmers market front, you know, if you've got a private property and want to start a farmers market, no one can stop you, right? Like, you can, and there are, you know, the Belfast Saturday United Farmers Market is a privately run market. The person has a property and they have over like 50 vendors who come every Saturday and set up, and it seems pretty successful. But it is, you know, you're starting your own enterprise here of doing that. And really the first steps are, yeah, to find, if you want to call it a farmer's market, you need at least 2 active farmers who are going to sell 75% plus their products. So, but aside from that, you know, you might want to look into liability insurance for yourself, or for the property and hosting a market. And you can go to our website for resources on starting a market, because, you know, like Corinne mentioned, the licensing and you know, every vendor should have their own liability insurance. Like you want to make sure you're protected. But there's no reason why you couldn't just go to that Saturday market and or whenever that other Danforth market is, and see what vendors want to come and set up in a different location for another day. You know, it's just that Danforth one might be run by the town or whoever it's run by.
Yes,
I don't know, right? Like it will be slightly different, but there's no reason why you wouldn't possibly be cooperative and consider it like, you know, day 2 of the Danforth Farmers Market. That's something you might want to discuss with them as well. So, but yeah, ultimately the vendor recruitment, like, might want to start with the local farmers you're connected with and or vendors you're connected with. And likewise for your store, I mean, I think that's a great way to to build out product inventory for your store, go to a farmer's market where there's local artisans and food producers and network with them. Like that's a
Yeah,
great.
I want it to be mostly Maine made everything. I want it to be
Mhm.
the locals anywhere in Maine that people can, give awesome product. And then Corinne, if I want to do food, can you do Northern Maine or are you basically just Southern Maine?
We're based out of Southern Maine, but if you have any general questions about, fortunately enough, it's a statewide licensing body. And the regulation is the same in all 16 counties. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to follow up with you about that. And the other thing I would recommend for you to check out is the Maine Farmers and Grocers Association. They are hosting, I'm actually going to hop into another workshop after this through a series called Selling More Maine Foods. And there's a
Oh.
lot of really critical information that you would benefit from that. If you missed the opportunity to reach out to them previously, they have a whole slew of recorded workshops online. We can follow up with each other, but yeah, lots of good information there too for somebody in your shoes.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Of course.
Yeah, great information. Does anyone else have any questions while we are still on the line here? I just wanted to share that I've had a personally great experience with Fork Food Lab as well. I worked with a group that did some hot sauces through Fork, and Fork is amazing if you're looking for any, food service help. And yeah. Well, if there's no other questions, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you to all of our presenters, Jimmy, Dina, and Corinne, and Eileen. You very valuable information for an integral part of Maine's ecosystem in business. And I want to throw out there again, if anyone here does not yet have a SCORE mentor, we are a free nonprofit service, and you can apply for a mentor at score.org for any business question you may have. And one more time, thanks again to our hosts and Fork Food Lab and the Maine Federation of Farmers Markets. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day.